Today we're going to talk about using a Bcam in an interview setting. I have my Sony Zv1 as my Bcam and my Sony A7 III as my A-cam. I'm going to show you what I'm looking for when I'm setting up a Bcam, how to frame it out, the different positions, and a few rules to follow when you're shooting interviews. I'm by no means an expert when it comes to using Bcams or getting the right angles. With that said, I want you to see the different angles a Bcam can produce. So as this video progresses, I'm going to incrementally move the Bcam at 8-inch intervals, which is about 15 degrees, until it gets completely to my side at the 90-degree angle. I wouldn't recommend pulling out a measuring tape when it comes to setting your Bcam at a set. This is just to help give you a better reference of where my Bcam is positioned, so you have a good place to start so you can go practice on your neighbors, your friends, your dogs, so when that phone call comes in for you to go do an interview, you have the knowledge to do it. Another reason a measuring tape wouldn't work is because every camera has different focal lengths, so a 24mm lens would look different than a 70mm lens if I was to use the 8-inch increment rule. But what doesn't change are the angles. So when I say 15-degree angle or 30-degree angle, that would stay the same no matter which camera you use. There's really no easy way to figure out your angles, but just to give you a good idea, the camera that's right in front of me is at 0. When the camera's straight to my right, it's at 90. So all of these angles fall somewhere in between. Also, I made a diagram so you can see my interview setups. This is how I like to set it up, and then I can adjust things from there. I created a PDF of this diagram, and I'll leave the link in the description so you can download it and print it out and then have it when you need it. From the subject's perspective, I have my key light off to my left at about 20 to 30 degrees. Then my interviewer will sit right in between the A-cam and the key light. I'll put my subject on the left side of the screen and have them face across the lens. Then I have my A-cam, then I have my B-cam with the fill light right above it, and then I have my hair light right behind me. So if I was to turn off my key light, this is what it would look like. If I was to turn off my fill light, that's what it would look like, and my hair light is like that. So it really does go to show how important all of your lights are and when to use them and how to use them. You may be asking what a Bcam is, and to answer that question, we first have to ask what an A-cam is. And an A-cam is the highest quality camera that you have on hand when you're at your set. Your Bcam is generally the one that's right below it. So if you had a Zv1 as your A-cam, you could use your smartphone as a Bcam. To put it in perspective, my first A-cam was a Canon T3i, and then I had an Osmo Pocket as my Bcam. After I got the Sony A7 III, the Canon T3i became my Bcam. No one ever complained about the color science or the differences, but I noticed it and it always bothered me. That's one of the main reasons I picked up the Sony Zv1, so that it could have a better matching color science to my A7 III than my Canon T3i or my Osmo Pocket. Now if I was to shoot straight at a camera with both the Sony A7 III and the Sony Zv1, there's a clear quality difference. But once I turned on Picture Profile 6, they just melted together. For this video, I'm using Cine 2. I switched the color mode to Cinema, and then I took down my detail to about -5. And I found that when you're using Cine 2, it works the best for interviews because it really gives you that true to life skin tone. Now you may be asking, why would I need to use a Bcam? Why can't I just have an A-cam? And there's a couple of different reasons why you would want to use a Bcam. For one, you can make seamless cuts. What I mean by that is if I was to say, Mary had a little lamb. I can't remember how the rest of that poem goes. Oh yeah, her fleece was white as snow. Now, watch what happens when I edit those two clips together, how it creates a seamless cut. Mary had a little lamb. Her fleece was white as snow. So you can make it look like a seamless flow and you have all of your stuff together no matter how many outtakes you have. Another reason that I love to use a Bcam in an interview setting is that it's great backup footage. I have had times in the past where my Sony A7 III dropped frames for some reason. Now thankfully I have a backup SD card in my A7 III, but I was so thankful to have my Bcam as my backup footage. As a side note, you should always have 2 of everything. 2 audio sources like a lav and a shotgun, 2 cameras, 2 hard drives with your memory. I've learned the hard way more than once, and I don't want you guys to make the same mistake. Coincidentally enough, this is the second time that I've recorded this video. The first time, about 20 minutes into it, the battery on my monitor was getting low. So I hooked up a power cord to my monitor, and then all of a sudden, for some reason, it inserted this like electric hum into my audio source. And finally, the 180-degree rule when it comes to camera angles. So I had a bunch of unusable audio, and if I just had a lav or a second shotgun set up, then I wouldn't have to be recording this video again, and I'd already be starting on the next video. So always have 2 sources of audio, 2 sources of your footage, and also 2 backups. Another reason why you would want to use a Bcam is to better help set the scene and the space that your subject is in. You see the subject from a different angle than what the A-cam is showing, and it gives a different perspective to the viewer. So when I first show up to an interview site, the first thing that I always do is look for the best space possible. In this case, we have 2 little windows that have a little bit of ambient light shining through because the sun is on the other side of the house now. So I'm gonna use that to my advantage, and I'm going to actually just push my lights a little bit and complement the light that's already coming in to give it that most natural look. You really want to start figuring out your framing before you start setting up your lights and your audio and wherever your Bcam is going to be. I've had many times where I just started to set up an interview, and then after my subject sat down, we found a better place and I had to re-pick up everything and move it to a new spot. I've also experienced setting up the entire interview because my backdrop was perfect and my A-cam looked great, but then once I brought in the Bcam, I saw something in the side drop that I didn't like, and we had to reposition it, and it takes a lot of extra time. So always be very intentional with what's in the background, where you're shooting your interview, where has the best lighting, before you start to set up. Some things to be conscious about when you're setting the scene is what industry is your subject in, or what topic are they talking about. We shot a video for an appraisal company, and because they're in a home buying business, we put them in a home. We put an ocean camp director in a marine environment and a blinds company owner in front of a window with blinds. You have to be conscious about what your subject is going to be talking about so that you can make sure that you're setting the scene properly, not only with your A-cam, but also your Bcam. Now that we've set the scene, it's time to frame out our subject. I always use the rule of thirds when I'm framing out my subject, so I'll put them on the left third of the screen and I'll make sure that their eyes are on the top third. And I also like to have some negative space between the side of the screen and the side of the subject. When it comes to the rule of thirds, when I'm using my A-cam, I'll put my subject off to the left third. I'll make sure that their eyes are splitting the top third, and I'll have them look off camera to my interviewer, which is about 20 degrees off camera. And if I was doing an interview with me as the subject, this is what it would look like. This gives me enough room to put some type here, maybe like a title, and also there's some negative space between the side of the screen and my subject. This is what it would look like if I was giving an interview to me. Framing is a pretty big deal. If you don't get framing right, there's a very good possibility that you're gonna have a bunch of unusable Bcam footage. I've definitely come home from an interview before and have had Bcam footage that I couldn't even use. So it's very good to understand how the angles are, what looks the most aesthetically pleasing, and what your favorite angle is, so that when you go to an interview and you shoot your Bcam footage, you come home with usable footage that you can use. Now I'm gonna talk to you guys about some rules that I follow when I'm setting up an interview. These rules can be broken and should be broken if the scene calls for it, but this is a good way just to start off and get your base, and then you can build out from there. The first thing that I always like to do is make sure that my lens is horizontal with my subject's eyes, so that the subject is not looking up and I'm not looking down towards the lens, even in the slightest bit. It has to be pretty precise. The same thing with the Bcam. I always make sure that the Bcam is 100% horizontal with my A-cam. So if I was to draw a line like this, it would split both screens right down the middle. Another rule that I like to follow is to push my subject as far back away from the back wall as possible. This gives a nice blurry background, and it really gives you a depth of field. If I'm outside and there's like bushes or a wall or something, I'll try to get my subject as far away from that wall as possible to give them a nice backdrop. It's really the most aesthetically pleasing to the eye. You don't ever want to push your subject up against the wall or bushes because it just doesn't look good. You want to give them some depth of field between the back and the subject. So this is what it looks like when you push somebody up against the wall. It's not very flattering and it's not a very interesting background. So it's always best to have a lot of space between your subject and the backdrop. This is what it looks like when you come outside and you push somebody right up against bushes. But if you just give them a little bit more background, it looks so much better. And the same thing goes with the Bcam. You might have an awesome backdrop with your A-cam, but when you use the Bcam, there's like a wall right here and it just doesn't look good. So in that case, I would actually move my setup. With that being said, sometimes there's just nothing you can do because of the situation that you're in. So if that is the case, then just make sure to light that back wall or do something with it that makes it interesting. The final rule that I always follow is the 180-degree rule. I know this one well because I've made this mistake in the past. And basically all it states is that if I'm the subject and I'm talking to the interviewer and I have my Bcam set up on this side of the A-cam, I should never cross over this line and go to the other side and show a different Bcam shot of the same subject because it just seems unnatural and jarring. And it's best just to keep your Bcam on one side of the subject and just leave it there. The same thing goes when you're doing some type of dialogue shot. If I had two subjects speaking and I had my camera over the shoulder of my subject looking at me, I would keep the camera on that same side, swivel it around, and then look over my shoulder to my subject. I would never cross the camera over to my other side and look at the subject from a different angle because it just seems jarring and unnatural. So I hope you enjoyed this video on how to use a Bcam in an interview setting. Please let me know in the comments below which your favorite angle was, what your favorite position was, and which angle you plan on using when you go and shoot your next interview. I'm Joe with Potter Made, and as always, let's grow as we go.